present their venue and work to make this conference as an exceptional learning and network opportunity. Before we dive into the enlightening presentation and discussion scheduled for today, allow me to introduce our distinguished chairperson for this session, Professor P.K. Sarkar. He is director of Asian Institute of Transport Department in Dindi, India. He stands as a beacon of expertise and knowledge. And I would like to request all presenters follow the presentation time strictly. On the presentation, we get 10 to 12 minutes for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome our distinguished chairperson, Professor P.K. Sarkar, and all guests and presentation. Now, I will hand over this session to chairperson to start the presentation and discussions. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you, and I welcome you to this research symposium, that is parallel session 4, that is on a very, very interesting and relevant subjects in today's society, that is land use and transportation planning. Because I think in land use and transport planning, there is, if I start giving introduction, there is no end. And since the understanding of transportation planning have been evolving for a period of time, we have seen that our transportation planning domain is basically built on a sound understanding of how the land use are developed in the society. Because without having had good land use planning, it is extremely difficult to manage a city. As you know, that if you go back to the 1960s, that time Mitchell and Wood has done a lot of work in developing the land use model. He says that any activity is giving rise to trips. So activity of different kinds will generate different kinds of trips. So that is the beginning. Now we have already practically have gone through many stages of developing the land use transport models. Even I had an opportunity also to test land use transport model using the Lowry's models. And we have seen that if you keep changing the land uses, you will find the impact on the network in a different ways. And you can decide which land use and which network is going to give you the best result in terms of containing trips, in terms of minimum trip length. So that practically gives a transportation planner a yardsticks to finally plan the city. And let me tell you, I do not know whether you are aware. You must be knowing that we keep on preparing master plans. And master plans basically have been evolved, basically, I think, with the judgment, experience, and to some extent intuitions. What is happens in our country? Though I have been some or other associated with noticing or observing the land use transport modeling with respect to master plan preparation, I do not find much major effort made on developing a land use transport models. To speak frankly, we take a decision based on our experience and intuitions. But on the other hand, I really like to tell you that even in Middle East, I know some of my known persons on the working. They say that they have a master plan, but if they like to change any kind of decision making with respect to change in land use, they go through the rigorous exercise in developing model and see how it has an impact on the network. Even must have designed a network which is basically synchronized traffic signals operations. But finally you see that there is likely to be some development has come up, and we might not have been able to envisage what is going to be the impact on the systems. Let me tell you very frankly, if anybody is familiar with Delhi, particularly Delhi master plan, you see, there are many district centers which has come up. One of the district centers I like to give you an example, say for example Nehru Place. If you see during the peak hour, it's very difficult to cross the section within a stipulated time. So because of the wrong planning, because we have not been able to test the land use transport models, as a result, we have been facing these problems. So now I am very happy. I was discussing, I think, some students from Kharagpur IIT. I am extremely happy they are sharing their knowledge, saying that we are doing something land use transport modeling exercise also now using our data and try to test the data with the machine language. You see, so much of advancement has taken place. I am very happy to say now we have been very much resorting onto the application of artificial intelligence. So there is so much of work. Of course, I had a privilege to work most of the areas, and I feel the subject which has been contributed by many researchers is really has given shape to our understanding, and so therefore I feel privileged and feel honored that I have been given a responsibility to talk on a subject which is very, very core of my heart. So anyway, I think that there are 6 papers have been listed out today for presentations. And Shastri, who is the coordinator here, he said me that we'll give 15 minutes to each presenter. But my model of operation is that if I give you 15 minutes at a stretch, we'll not have any time left out for question answering. So my model says that we should give 10 to 12 minutes at best. If you cross 12 minutes, then I will ask you to stop. So you try to organize your presentation in a manner so that at any cost you should not go more than 12 minutes. And so that is going to be first step. And in fact, I have not been provided with the abstracts. But anyway, all the papers looks to be quite interesting to me. You have made a lot of efforts, I suppose. I think all are researchers, either doing masters or PhD, and this is maybe as a part of their this output of your masters or PhD work. Very good. And so now I see the past presenters is Ashish Makhandar and Samit Sahane. You are here, Acha. Okay, you are going to talk on COVID's 19's impact on transportation space and abundant urban design practices. Okay. So I think that without wasting time, I will request you to make your presentation. You must have loaded your PowerPoint presentation on the laptop, or you are going to load it now. So please see that you utilize your time judiciously, intelligently.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all the queer folks present over here. My name is Ashish, and I am from Karnataka. Professor Sarkar mentioned one thing that there are a lot of masters and PhD students. I would like to point out that I have just done bachelor's in civil engineering. So I hope I have some mercy.
Okay, please, you're most welcome.
Yeah. So today I have a distinct honor of standing in front of you, not just as an engineer, but advocate for change and a passionate researcher. So they say a measure of society is how it treats its vulnerable population. With that measure, I think India has failed in that assessment, particularly in the pandemic context. During the context of pandemic, I was outraged that our transportation system collapsed completely. Buses were idle and train station turned into ghost towns. Now, whom do we blame for this? Do we blame government because that's what the easy target is? But who is going to blame the engineers and urban planners present over here? Their density focused planning for decades has been failed, and that is what we are need the need of this research was. We need to emphasize on more inclusive and more holistic urban design planning, and this COVID-19 was one of a such lesson where we need to re-evaluate what kind of urban design we want to go for in the future. So basically my research delves into three particular topic. One is transportation space, urban design practices, and COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is something comes once in 100 year. Epidemic and pandemics tend to come every 50 years or 100 years in between. We are, as a country, looking gender inclusive planning at 21st century, which is very late, because in US and UK gender inclusive planning was a phenomena in 1970s or something. India adapted very late with this humanistic approach in urban design. We are more of technical approaches into transportation space. So I think from now on, we should include COVID-19 and epidemic and pandemic planning as a lens in a transportation planning. Yesterday, our Honorable Minister of Housing made a remarks, and I quote him. He said, why will anybody will move to private vehicles if efficient public transport is in place? Mr. Housing Minister, I would like to recounter that point by saying that the reason people will still choose private vehicle is fear, guilt, and anxiety. They have fear that they will get COVID, they have anxiety about this pandemic, and they have guilt that they may share or transmit that to somebody else, causing death. So no matter how good or efficient urban planning or transport planning you do, private vehicles or autonomous vehicles will never go out of fashion. So basically, these are the three main research questions which I am going to address. One is examining the changes post-pandemic and pre-pandemic. What has changed in our transportation dynamics? That's our first major question. Second, perception of conventional urban planning. What do citizens and expert panels think of our urban design planning process, specifically Indian urban planners? So that we are going to see. And third one is what are the opportunities and challenges in the future for India? So the hypothesis here was I'm going to assume that COVID-19 has disrupted our transportation space completely and our system has broken. And prior studies have focused on COVID-19 and its death, COVID-19 and some mental health issues. It has not delved into such kind of infrastructural theme before. So this is the first time we are going to look a health and infrastructure together. So the methodology adopted was a mixed method study combining 7 kinds of studies, which we will go deeper. Preliminary findings, just for your reference, 70% decreased public transit usage, especially students, and interviews revealed that concerns over density focused approaches. So literature review, we highly focused on 2 major journals, which one is Lancet and second one is Cities and Health by Taylor and Francis, because we could not find much articles about India having this kind of studies where they are integrating health and infrastructure. I could barely find, so it was difficult. We had some limitations over there, but overall I tried to manage with some global case studies. So let's go deeper into our method section. A concurrent triangulation design was allowed. First and foremost, we decided we are going to interview some urban design, environmental engineers, sociologists who have vast experience in their area. Average 18 years of experience was the number. 15 experts we interviewed, we have their transcripts, and there was some major themes or major concerns. We decoded it. We will look into that further. After that, we did a survey with 100. The sample size here is very low because country like India deserves at least 250 to 300 people as a sample. But unfortunately, we got just 100 responses, and I think it's fine as a preliminary and explanatory studies. Then we did, of course, literature review and document analysis for further insights. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the table which will explain the complex methods we adopted in a more generalistic view. We made this easier to understand. So, first and foremost, descriptive statistics. So, basic characteristics: how much car ridership has gone down, how much the e-rickshaws or metros have gone down, that frequencies we have seen, what are the differences, and the key findings were decreased transit use views on planning approaches, difference by location. Second is chi-square test. We did a chi-square test to examine the relationship between categorical variables. We found out that students are more against, and they strongly believe that our urban design planning is not efficient enough. They expect some kind of green spaces, they expect some kind of biking lanes, pop-up biking lanes, cycling lanes, and majorly this concern has come from Mumbai and Chennai. So hope whoever is working over there take this consideration that we need more lush green spaces over concrete roads. Second, we did a one-way ANOVA test to see whether there is a difference of opinion between metro city, major city, and small cities. And we found out there's a significant differences between location types. Metro cities citizens tend to be more vocal about these issues, and that has been reflected here. Small city citizens were not that bothered about urban design and everything. I think it was going pretty much like a day-to-day business for them. But metropolitan cities were something very much affected, and that has been reflected in our survey. So we did a linear regression, and we found out the decreased use of significant predictor. Then we did a thematic analysis and 6 major themes identified. Then we did a time series analysis to see what are the changes over the period of time. Then we did a cross correlation to see ridership heavily influenced by social distancing policies. We did a document review for common shifts towards flexibility, adaptability, and resilience. So these are the key quantitative results. Our stratified random sampling approach generated a robust data sets of 100 representing a demographic diversity of Indian megacities. And the responses majorly came from Mumbai, New Delhi, and Chennai, just to be there, and also small cities like Belgaum, Kolhapur. As hypothesized, chi-square tests revealed that students exhibited significantly greater decrease in public transit usage. Over 70% of students say that they did not use public transport in the COVID time or immediately after the lockdown was lifted. Analyzing travel behaviors through one way between subjects of ANOVAs demonstrated that major metro areas reported markedly higher deficiencies in transportation accessibility versus smaller cities. So basically, cities like Delhi and Mumbai facing high, or I would say major issues compared to smaller cities. Perhaps most saliently, hierarchical multiple regression demonstrated a pre-existing decline in transit ridership emerged as a statistically strong predictor. And by Bayesian structural equation modeling on our mixed effects modeling length, further credence to shifting perception of established urban planning paradigms. So when we talk, this is all the data of survey. Now let's see what experts say, whether experts disagree with our data or they just complement our research. So after using Nivivo, we have found out these 6 themes. And experts think there is a public transit decline, which is very much evident. Second one is active transport increase. What does this mean? Active transport increase means people who were dependent on what do you say, metros, shared ridership or paratransit, they completely abandoned that sector and they moved towards cycling, bike and e-scooters, other measures which gave them a sense of isolation in the pandemic. Then urban design challenges, as many have pointed out.
Ashish, you have to hurry up because time is approaching already 12
Two more
minutes.
slides.
Okay.
So yeah, urban design challenges include structures, a lack of green space or heavily dense spaces, and no public space. That's a major concern. Public space redesigned for kids, public space redesigned for elders. This is something lacking in India, and I have never seen either. And there is a lot of opportunities for innovation, and experts believe that COVID-19 has affected in such a way that there is an amplification of inequitable access where a poor has suffered more, and there is the uncertainties of post pandemic normalization. So what we as an engineer and urban planners can do is we need more flexible plans. We need first and last mile connectivity vital to support decentralized activity hubs. We need to address the barriers preventing shifts in active modes like infrastructure. Then what we can address the challenges are density assumptions central to transit oriented development challenge, social distancing norms highlighted deficiency in shared space models, pre-existing inequities and access to safe mobility exacerbated. There is a lot of possibility of transformation. Overall, the outcome is we need to reimagine our urban design, and we need to take holistic look apart from what do you say, economy. That 5 trillion economy dream is very good, but it's not the only thing we should focus on. We need to focus more on public health, we need to focus on vulnerable population, and that's what is our duty. Rather than just making India as a business capital, we need to move to make India as a socially just and sustainable city. So this is a render just for your reference. Delhi as reimagined with the tactical urbanism, and yeah, this city will look cool. Considering now just I had a tour of Delhi and it was too much of traffic over here. So I think this works. So further research is required. I felt that experts gave immediate opinions, but they lacked long-term vision. So that limitation I have to accept. That experts only focused on immediately what we can do to address COVID-19 disaster regarding infrastructure. Long-term vision is required, and more data set will give more credibility. So this is our limitations, and thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any
Ashish,
questions, please ask.
thank you for your presentation, but I think that you have been trying to cover many things all at a time. It's extremely difficult to appreciate. Had you just cut down the scale of your presentation, that would have been perhaps given you more insight. That's my first and response. But anyway, you have made an attempt. But I just like to tell you that when you are trying to do many things all at a time,
Yeah.
evolve a policy is not very easy. You just come out with some kind of solution. Suppose had then COVID not been existed, so perhaps I would have also come out with the same ideas. So therefore, you have got to be very specific that what is your content of your problems and how you are trying to perceive and scale of your understanding, and then bring it down to the rational with respect to your solutions. So,
Yes, I completely agree with your point, sir, that it tries to cover many themes, I would
yeah,
say.
you should be very careful. As a researcher, we should not land into a trouble for our own mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's why I have a long experience. That's why I thought of sharing my what you call understanding. Sometimes when a researcher comes with a lot of ideas, sir, we'll do that, I'll do that. I say you cannot do that. Time is limited. So because you are going to be a researcher, finally I think see you from enthusiasm. Okay, keep it up. Thank you. Now, with that, I will request the next presenter, Sneha. I think along with her, I think that Ashok Singh Rajput, who is going to make a presentation. Sneha? Yes. Okay. And the topic is
So,
in-
yeah, hello.
implementing access controlled footpaths in urban roads with consideration for universal design principles. Uh, could you kindly introduce yourself, your masters or PhD students, so that all people are benefited?
So, good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Sneha. I recently finished my PhD from University of Tokyo, Japan, and parallelly, because of COVID, again, I had to move to India before the finish of my PhD. So, parallelly, I was working with Drupad consultants, and during that time, I happened to work on this project. And right now, I was lucky enough to get enrolled as an assistant professor at IIT BHU. So this was the work done during the PhD time. So I'll start my presentation with the problem statement. It has two parts to it. So we see that there is a lot of encroachment that happens on the footpaths in urban areas, especially where the density is very high and the traffic is quite heavy. So there are static encroachments and dynamic encroachments. This presentation or this problem particularly focuses on the dynamic encroachments. Those are the two-wheelers and the cyclists who tend to encroach onto the footpaths meant otherwise for pedestrians. So now when we talk about pedestrians, this gives us the second part of the problem statement, as in who are pedestrians. If we go by the conventional dictionary definition of pedestrians, they say that it's a person traveling on foot rather than using any vehicle. But from the IRC codes, we get two distinct definitions for a pedestrian. One is which incorporates the persons with disabilities, those who are using clutches or wheelchairs, and then to create an obstacle-free environment. This gives us the idea of universal accessibility. So keeping these concepts in mind, we found that there are two challenges which we face in urban areas. The first challenge is, as you can see from the image on the top, that when we tend to provide some barriers in terms of bollards, so we limit the access of wheelchair users. And if we provide the access to the wheelchair users, we tend to create a smooth way forward for the bike users or cyclists. So there has to be a balance in the approach so as to control the encroachment on the footpaths as well as give accessibility to the PWDs or the physically challenged. So there are a few market solutions which are available, but they come with their own limitations. I'll not go into detail of this. But what do the codes say? So we refer to two main IRC codes to understand what are the limitations in terms of the positioning of the bollards and the railings to formulate a barrier or access controlled barrier system for footpath users. So the two IRC codes that we referred in detail were the IRC 103 2012 and the IRC SP 117 2018. So with use of these two IRC codes and the dimensions that we got from these codes, we came up with a triple bollard system. We call it TBS. And the research focuses on this TBS system, and it keeps in mind the universal design principles through access control of two-wheelers. So the methodology that we adopted was we derived certain parameters through discussion with lot of experts who were there, who were the stakeholders who were working in PWD and CPWD and other agencies, authorities. And then we studied the IRC codes in detail and came up with two different types of parameters. First were the fixed parameters and the other were the variable parameters. So the fixed parameters came from the IRC codes and the variable parameters came from the field experiments that we conducted and the simulations that we carry further. So this is the brief of the methodology that we adopted. And finally, the parameters that I was talking about. So the fixed parameters were that we have to have a 600-meter way free for pedestrians or for people who are walking onto the footpaths, and then the minimum distance between the bollards has to be 900 mm for the wheelchair movement, and then the variable design parameters, as in how many bollards do we require, what is the number of rows of the bollards that is sufficient, should we have 1 row of bollard, 2 row of bollard, or 3 row of bollard, or beyond bollards, or beyond that. So these variables were calibrated, these were experimented on the field, and then the validation was done through simulation. And finally, these were some of the dimensions that we came up at the end of the entire experimentation. So these are the images of the field experiment. As you can see, we have used the cricket stumps. So as then we have the flexibility of changing the distance between the rows of the bollards and the spacing between them. And then these swept path were derived for bikes, for wheelchair, and for the pedestrian movement. So now the next question is that we have multiple widths of footpaths in an urban area. It's not that the width of the footpath is fixed. So we have to come up with a universal solution which can be applicable across different cities where the width of the footpaths will vary. So ultimately, we came up with a design package which incorporates the minimum width of footpath, say 1600 to 3400 of widths. So this is a final design package that we came up. So these are multiple drawings, a total of about 9 to 10 drawings, wherein the footpath width varies, and then the positioning of the bollards and the requirement of the railing as per the need has been designed to provide access controlled universal accessibility onto the footpaths. So these are the drawings for the from the design package. As you can see, all the drawings can be, I have shared the QR link at the end of the presentation, so they can be referred from there. And the key recommendations and the considerations for this design package is we have to apply this solution at very specific location. It cannot be applied at each and every footpath because the number of bollards, as you can see from the drawings, is very large. It sometimes becomes overwhelming that we have to install so many bollards to control the access onto the footpaths. So this solution has to be specifically incorporated at busy intersections where the tendency to defy the weighting of the signals by the two-wheelers is large. Secondly, there has to be some policy recommendations or policy formulation so as the minimum width of the two-wheelers, as in the overhang or the leg guard of the bikes, that is restricted, because it all depends on the width of the two-wheeler or the bike. And the third is the height of the bollard, because this system will be incorporated at places where you have cyclist movement also, and we have designated path for cyclists and pedestrians, so as to allow the cyclists but restrict the bike users or scooty users. We have to limit the height of the bollard to 750 mm. This also was derived from the experiments, the height of 750 mm for the height of the bollard. So finally, we are in touch with certain agencies. We are trying to implement this solution in cities, and we are in discussion with some agencies, and we'll try to get it as in implemented, and we'll have real-time results. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sneha. I think that you have made an approach to understand the necessity of having a better systems for non-motorized transport in an area at junctions and many other places. And you're trying to and also you must have referred that 103.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I do not know. I happen to be the chairman of that 103, and under my guidance, there is a lady. I do not know whether you are aware, Anjali Agarwal.
Okay, sir.
She is the champion for PWD. And she has helped me a lot in bringing all those details as you are seeing in the IRC document. So, in fact, we have come out with the recommendations that 1800, that means 1.8 meter would be the ideal minimum, I would say. width of the footpath, so as to enable two people with a hand, what you call, with a wheelchair, can negotiate. What you call, in a different, both ways. So that is, otherwise we are confined with 15, what you call, 1.5 meters. So that's why with our recommendation this has been changed. Hopefully you are trying to look into the about the positioning bollard, and that's quite. And my point is that, is it going to be really rational to give a standardized suggestions, or you need to look for what you call, land use specific, what you call, recommendation, where depending on the scale of NMT or pedestrians are moving together. So that's another challenge. You cannot really standardize. That's my past response. So you
Sir,
need to go
yes,
further to examine these issues.
so that's why exactly in the recommendations we have recommended it only at very busy junctions, not to be applied each and everywhere. So this is kind of this based on a lot of experiments and lot of deliberations with the authorities. So it can't be implemented each and everywhere in all the footpaths. So that's why we recommended it at very specific positions where the tendency of the two-wheelers is to jump the signal and traverse their way onto the footpaths and like cut down their length, the travel distance to the signal.
You see, this is one of the very important areas of discussions. We have not been very successful bringing the particular NMT bicycle in the design of intersections. And there has been a standard practice we have seen many developed countries, but in India is very difficult.
So that is a problem of law and order, I would say, rather than policy, because we tend to see wherever the bollards have been implemented or they have been put up, they tend to get like people tend to like take them away or disrupt the.
You design your physical system in such a way that the cyclist will be forced to come before the motorist so as to negotiate safely.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes, yes.
good attempt.
Thank you so much.
Now, after Sneha, I'll request the third one, Bala Iswari Macha and Devapratim Pandit. Yes, from IIT. That is, theme is topic on which they are working, need for a context-sensitive approach to TOD in India. Okay. You can introduce yourself right now so that audience know
Yes, sir.
that you are doing your PhD.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
A very good morning to everyone. I am Baleshwari and I am a PhD scholar from IIT Kharagpur. So we are working on how transit-oriented development is an important topic in Indian context. There are a lot of studies from 1993 that has focused on transit-oriented development in the West. But with rapid metro expansion in current Indian scenarios, there is a need to look in the TOD perspective as well, because this is a concept that integrates land use and transportation, especially the metro corridors. So in this regard, I'll be presenting on the need for context-sensitive approach. So as being discussed from yesterday itself, that there are going to be issues that will be coming up because of the rapid development that is going to happen soon, which is already happening and it is going to exacerbate more. So we will be seeing more issues related to transportation, infrastructure, housing and environment more often. And another important aspect is with respect to TOD, there is a lack of linkages with the existing regulations like the master plans and other land acquisition acts. We all have the acts and bylaws, but there is a missing linkage between the TOD concepts and these regulations. And hence, we would like to highlight that there is a need for an integrated approach considering all these aspects. And another important thing is TOD is not same in every city. It changes based on the geography and the context. Hence, one-size-fit-all approach is not appropriate. We have to work based on the context of the city. As the policy says, the TOD is applicable to the influence area, but the entire influence area is not currently associated with the metro corridor or the ridership. We have to work towards that goal. As we can see, The definition covers various aspects from accessibility, affordable housing, pedestrian, environment. It covers a varied aspects, and it has also links with the garden city, linear city, finger plan, and compact city aspects of urban planning. These are very old concepts that we refer to. The definition has evolved over time, but if you see the okay, sorry for the overlapping text. So because of the literature, in the literature, there are aspects that cover about the built environment, mobility aspects, travel patterns, mode choice. Later, the literature has evolved towards the real estate and housing market as well. And slowly the environment aspect is being tapped. But with such a high density development already existing in India, which is already a mixed use development, these two being the core components of TOD, which is already there in India, we need to approach TOD in the aspect of carrying capacity perspective by considering the existing infrastructure that is already available. It is important to associate with the other infrastructure facilities like water supply, solid waste, and sanitation aspects as well. Otherwise, we'll run out of the resources if we follow the Western concept exactly of the high density and mixed use development and densify more. So in this regard, we would like to see how this can be a potential tool for Indian context. This paper critically examines the literature along with the policy documents, acts and laws, and various master plans, and 3 cities which has formulated their TOD in the form of gazettes as well. So these are the 2 key policies that assist in TOD development. One is National TOD Policy and Metro Rail Policy. Both have come up in the year 2017 itself. And the influence zone is considered from 500 to 800 meters, but the influence zone varies depending upon the city's characteristics, which I'll be showing in the next slide. So these are the 12 guiding principles and 9 supportive principles that have been highlighted in the policy. I'm not going in detail for this. These are directly from the policy document. In addition to that, various guiding documents have been released by ministry, which highlights the 5-step planning process as well. But still there are gaps remaining in the implementation process and how to assess these TOD zones, or how to assess these functioning of these areas and the interdependencies between the infrastructure and land use transportation. In addition to that, Metro Rail Policy also highlights the importance of integrating TOD policy within it, and also highlights the importance of land value capture mechanisms, because that is where the revenue will be generated. And it also highlights the need for a comprehensive approach, but the responsibility for implementing all this relies with the state government. So this needs to be noted. So we have done an evaluation of 3 policies of Delhi, Pune, and Bangalore, because these 3 cities have formulated their gazettes. That's why we have considered these 3 for our critical analysis. As you can see, the influence zone varies. From Delhi, it is 800 meters from the station area. In Pune, it is 500 meters influence area is taken. And in Bangalore, it is 100 meters, that is 1 kilometer. And it varies if it is a corridor. If entire corridor is considered for a TOD development, again, the influence zones varies. So why I'm repeating the word influence zone means the entire development or the FAR or FSI that has been relaxed will be applicable only to the influence zone area. So we will see how it is being differed from the existing bylaws that are there for all these cities. So the small comparison table of existing bylaws, what is the FAR as per the bylaws, maximum FAR, and to what extent of FAR can be allowed in the TOD area as per the already approved gazette. I have tried to summarize here. So in Delhi, general building bylaws, maximum FAR is allowed till 350, but in TOD areas, it can go up till maximum 500. In case of Pune, FSI is 1.2, and in case of TOD areas, it can go up till 4. And in case of Bangalore, from 2.5 to it can go up till 4.25 to 5. But it is also important to note that all the land use mix proportions in these TOD influence areas should adhere with the already existing zonal and master plans. In this slide, we will see other supporting rules and regulations that will help for the smoother implementation of TOD, including from the Land Acquisition Act, Real Estate Act, town planning schemes which are already existing in few cities, transfer of development rights, which is a very good land readjustment tool which can be utilized actively in India. And other value capture mechanisms have also been highlighted by land value policy documents. In addition to that, we have our good old building bylaws and URDPFI guidelines. In addition to that, specific to transport development, city mobility plans are also in place to provide a base framework. The major challenges that we are facing in the current implementation is because, as I say, there are 12 principles and 9 supporting tools. There are so many sectors that needs to be covered, not just the land use and transportation, but the street network, building design, footpaths, everything needs to be covered. That is why there is an involvement of multiple stakeholders, and intergovernmental integration is very important for smoother implementation of such kind of land use integration projects. Another thing I would like to point out is, since master plans are prepared for a 20-year time period, and the development around metro station is a bit faster pace, since the older master plans did not consider TOD, but most of the master plans that are being prepared currently are considering TOD as a focus strategy. In addition to that, smart cities are also mentioning this kind of development through area-based development strategies. These are the 3 key approaches that we can follow to avoid adverse effects that may come up from TOD development or very high developments. So in some cases, gentrification aspects are happening, like since these TODs or the metro networks are designed to increase accessibility, but the actual people who are depending on this transport network are being displaced because of the high market areas, high market demand, the residential market demand, etc. So in this regard, if we start looking from the carrying capacity perspective by understanding what is the maximum capacity of the existing resources, be it water, solid waste or sanitation, along with green spaces, and then if we could assess some strategies or build scenarios where we can look forward which kind of development is most suitable and what is the maximum cap of FSI that we can put upon. Another aspect is, since there is a financing issue that we always face, land value capture as a tool can also be looked into, and in Delhi some practices are already have been there, and in Hyderabad Wild Plus property model is also being adopted. But there is a lack of data-driven approach. That is why we don't have data sets that prove this kind of integration. So we have to adopt the data-driven approach also for effective implementation. Another tool is local area planning, which is already being in place in few areas. So I would like to say that integration of all these components of travel behavior and real estate along with infrastructure carrying capacities would give a good idea for our strategies. Government's current focus is also on promoting TOD wherever it is appropriate, as per the high-level committee report released in April. So micro level planning, focusing on the influence area as well as corridor development wherever required is been highlighted. It is also important to understand the cause and effect relationships within the components of TOD. If we try to develop strategies or the scenarios which lead us to choose the better or the cap of the FSI or the development that can happen, it would help as a tool for the real estate developers as well as the planners and government officials to address what land value capture mechanisms can be taken place to cope up with the development and the financing aspect as well. So I would like to conclude that the policies are still evolving. Initiation has been made, but the policies are still evolving, and there is a fragmented development happening parallelly and an involvement of multiple stakeholders. In this regard, in case of Indian cities, if we approach from the carrying capacity side, not from the approach of high density and mixed use that is being adopted from the West, it would reach to a positive development considering TOD as a strategy. So TOD in India is a potential tool if we look it in the form of a well-integrated, policy-driven and context-specific approach, which will finally enhance mobility and improve urban services by creating vibrant communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bala. I think that you had talked about the FAR from 3.5 going right up to 5, and you say that there is a need for capping. Did you do any kind of simulation studies to see that what is going to be the optimal effect of FAR with respect to development of TOD?
Sir,
That would be a kind of good research Because everybody, we are trying to do some through our experience.
Yes, sir. So this is the initial part of my research. So
Okay.
my next steps in this regard are to take one city which is having a metro system and a high integration of land use and transportation. So when I narrow down to a city case study, I will be developing a model which predicts the maximum FAR that can be allowed in that particular area, considering the existing infrastructure capacity. So this is the approach that we have finalized, but empirical evaluation is yet to be done, sir.
Yeah, that is going to be a good area of research, because I think that everybody, in Delhi, I suppose we have taken around 4 something like FAR, if I'm right.
Yes, 4 is being, it has taken up till 5 FAR, but 4 to 4.5 is generally
So
followed.
one of my students was doing research using the FAR4,
Yeah.
and because you can't really say that 4 or 4.5 which is going to be optimal, because ultimately you like to see the best utilization of our land.
Yes, sir. That is what I'm trying to work. So the model is yet to be built. We have
Okay,
finalized
you are
the
working on the model.
Yes, sir, I'm working on the model. So we will narrow down to one
And,
city.
yeah, another
specific model.
important thing is, I think that you have to understand, because TOD, there is also capping of your parking demand.
Yes, sir.
I think Delhi has been able to reduce it from 2 to 1, if I'm correct.
Equivalent calculation.
And are you also thinking on this line? This is number 1. Number 2 is that in the station design, because you want to bring more accessibility to the station in order to see that station is being utilized by all section of people. So are you really going on to the scale of understanding the
No, sir.
station?
Station level design is not being considered in our research, and parking we haven't considered yet. But if the need arises, we need to consider the parking space, because accordingly we have to finalize the FSI component. So
Delhi has done it based on their experience.
Yes,
2
sir.
to 1. I do not know the rationale. Anyway, that's what I'm
actually-
saying. As a researcher, I just like
Yes,
to
sir.
throw this
I
question open to you. Look into that.
As you correctly pointed out, policy also mentions the parking space as well. But for our discussion, I have highlighted the FAR aspect because, that is another perspective of the research. We should definitely think on the parking side aspect as well.
Okay, thank you. I will ask the next presenter sir, if you can allow me, because let me finish this one presentation, then you have an ample opportunity to ask questions. So I was just asking in order to encourage the researchers initially. Okay. Next presenter is Puneet Mishra and Uttam Kumar Roy. They are talking on exploring the commercial performance of self-organized mixed-use streets in Delhi.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You are Puneet?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Puneet Mishra. I am from the Department of Architecture and Planning, IIT Roorkee. And today I will be presenting my work on exploring the commercial performance of self-organized mixed-use streets in Delhi. As we all know, mixed use is one of the key components of various planning movements, from smart growth to transit-oriented development to transit neighborhood-based development. So it is one of the key components of all the different planning movements which are implemented today in various planning policies. And one of the key benefits of it is, we all know that mixed use is actually about bringing the activities together, bringing the various land uses together to reap the composite benefit of it. And its benefits can actually be divided into 3 broad categories: from transportation point of view, from economic benefits, and from social point of view. We can say that from transportation point of view, it works for VMT, vehicular mile travel reduction, increase in the use of alternative modes, it shortens the trip and increase the walkability. From economic perspective, it actually helps in increasing the values of properties from commercial point of view as well as residential properties. It creates the job population balance and increases the employment and income of the local people who are living in those mixed use areas. And from social aspect, we can say that from the walkability point of view, there has been studies which have suggested that BMI score of the people who are living in these zones have actually bettered. Eyes on street is a phenomena which actually talks about the women's safety, because these are the areas which show a lot of diversity and people actually are into a close interaction with each other. So it creates a more secure and safe environment for the women and overall in general. It creates a sense of belongingness to the people and overall for the heritage revitalization part as well. So it has a lot of benefits. That is why it has been proposed in a lot of policies. But what happens on ground or what happens in the Indian condition is that apart from its implementation on ground from policy point of view, a lot of mixed use is actually taking place in more of an incremental manner, or maybe we can say in an illegal manner, where there are residential plots but later they are actually changed into the commercial properties. Mostly the ground floors are taken as a commercial properties and the upper floors are used for residential purposes. And in Delhi, more than 6,000 streets so far have been declared mixed use streets in last few years, few decades. So the actually this kind of streets, we can say that they are the self-organized mixed use streets and they are working on their own, and there are a lot of economic activities happening there. And so far there have been no studies to actually understand that what actually drives these streets to actually become in this kind of a economic sector where people are actually living there, as well as they are getting their opportunities of economic benefit. They are getting the opportunities to earn their livelihood from these streets. So this residential sector as well as the commercial sector, which is taking place in a combined manner, a study is required to actually find out that what are the factors which contribute to the development of these self-organized mixed use streets, and what is the effect size of various indicators and factors. For the site selection, there are 15 planning zones. We have actually taken zone H, which is mostly the Rohini zone. We have taken for our study, and we have studied 8 streets from there. 240 samples have been selected. And we have taken this zone because it shows a lot of diversity in terms of residential development. It has different kind of residential development, from resettlement colonies to unauthorized colonies, authorized colonies, planned, and as well as apartment based development and urban villages all. So we have tried to select the areas and streets from all different zones. The indicators, because we are actually studying the commercial performance, we have studied the commercial performance in terms of the footfall to a particular shop which is actually situated on these mixed use streets. So what is the number of customer who are actually visiting these shops on an average weekday, which is actually situated on a mixed use streets. And the other independent variables which we have selected here can be broadly categorized into 4 different categories. The retail typology based indicators, where we have the different types of shops and activities which are taking place. The clustering is another important economic phenomena, where we have seen in urban economics that if the economic activities cluster together, the overall economic output of the area actually increases. So that is why we have tried to study the clustering as well as the clustering of informal activities along these corridors. Similarly, the mixedness based indicators are created, where we have seen whether the shop owners is actually living in the same area where he is having his shop, and what is the distance between his residence and the place of work. Similarly, another is what percentage of the people are the local customer. We have tried to study it within the walking zone of 500-meter buffer of the area, and how many customers these shops are receiving from a buffer area, from a local area. Similarly, we have another indicator based on network connectivity based indicator, that is linked to node ratio, to understand what is the ratio of network connectivity. It can be defined by the ratio of number of 3-way and 4-way intersection, and the ratio between the number of links between these intersections, that is the link to node ratio. This is the descriptive stats which we have got from the survey results. We can see that most of the shops are actually getting around 50 to 75 customers a day, and about 2/3 of the shops are having an informal activity also taking place in front of them. Similarly, we can see that we have divided the type of activities into 5 broad categories. Most of the shops are retail, second are the services, food and multipurpose stores are another one, and next is the percentage of local customer is actually about 40%. Now, for our analysis, we have used actually ordinal logistic regression, because the data was actually gathered in an ordered category form. And these are just the parameter estimates, where we have found certain parameters which have been significant to actually predict the number of customers which will be visiting these shops located on the mixed use streets. We'll come to the result and discussion part. In each category we can see we have tried to understand what is the average sale of these areas. We have found that higher average sale of the shops are actually having a more number of customers visiting the areas. Also the number of hours operating, the shops which are actually operating for a longer hours are also having a number of customer increased. We can see that the overall, if we increase the if we actually increase the shop operating for one more hour, there is a possibility the odds of visiting customers can be increased by 1.86 times. So similarly, the activity types, we have seen that these mixed use streets actually show a diversity of activities. And apart from retail, there are two more categories: the food based item and the multi-purpose stores. These are the two different activity types which actually contribute to the overall customer footfall of these streets. From clustering point of view, if we have seen that if the shops which are actually selling the same kind of items are located together, it actually increases the overall customer footfall, contrary to the opinion that maybe because of the competition between the shop, the customer footfall will decrease. What is happening actually is, if there are a number of shops actually presenting the same kind of products, the overall customer footfall is increasing to all the shops. Similarly, from informal activity point of view, we have also seen that if there is an informal activity taking place in front of a particular store, the overall customer visiting to the store is also increasing apart from the informal activity. Mixedness based indicators have not given actually a very significant result. What we have seen in some of the shop owners have actually located to other places, and they only have the shops here on the mixed use streets, while the percentage of local customers have also decreased later on. In the beginning, when the shop is open for and it has functioned for few years, it caters to the local customers, but later on, as the connectivity is better, it actually captures the customer base from a broader area. So as the time increases, the customer base actually increases and people start coming from other areas to these areas as well. And from connectivity point of view, it has given a very significant result. The link node ratio has actually shown that if we increase it by 1 unit, the odds of customers visiting the weekday increased by 9 times. So overall, if we see what can be the policy implications of these studies, we can say, because we have found it's more of a general thing. We all know that if the sale is high, the customer footfall will be high. But overall, it can help us in prioritizing the infrastructure demand for high revenue generating areas. The infrastructure demand can be for the parking purpose, for pedestrianization purpose. So we can actually find out which are the areas we can focus for future, which are actually high revenue generating areas in these mixed use streets. Secondly, we can use a longer hour timings for these shops. We can provide a longer hour timing and a flexible timing which will increase the overall vibrancy and customer footfall to these areas. Survey streets also show, as we have already discussed, the food and multi-purpose store are the two activities which actually attract a lot of customer base from the local community. Third is the retail clustering based indicators have also confirmed the theoretical assumptions for us, and also the informal activities have been a key factor to increase the overall customer footfall for these streets. And finally, road network connectivity was the second most crucial factor, as we have seen, and it actually increased the overall footfall to these areas. So these information can be overall used for formulating the policies for mixed use streets later on. Thank you very much.
Puneet, it's a good presentation, but I'd like to ask you very important areas of concern.
Yes, sir.
You have dealt with mixed land use, basically with keeping in view that commercialization
Yes, sir.
to some extent.
Yes.
Now, nowadays we do not have any kind of strong guidelines that what is going to be the size of the mixed land use. So, what is going to be the percentage of commercial which is likely to be allowed in the long run to come? Because sometimes the mixed land use sometimes becomes so mixed, it becomes unmanageable.
Yes.
So we have got to find out ways and means to see in terms of category of mixed land use. If you
Definitely,
can develop the category of mixed land use depending on the scale of commercialization, that perhaps will throw more light for the land use
Definitely,
planner.
sir. From actually, what we have seen so far now is that we have given the broad percentage-based guidelines, and here in this study, what I have actually tried to go at more micro level, at shop level, which can be seen as a smallest unit
But
of
this is
mixed
okay.
use.
I think that these you can broaden this study
Definitely, sir.
to look into these areas. That is going to be quite interesting for the land use planner.
Definitely.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
And now the next presenter is Kirtika Sharma, Aditya Pitale, and Shubhajit Sadhu Khan. And your areas of presentation is how regional rapid transit systems will impact the development along the Delhi Ghaziabad Meerut corridor, a stakeholder perception. Very good. Please carry on. So you have already started thinking on this line. Okay.
Okay.
Kritika.
So, good morning, distinguished guests. My name is Kritika, and I've recently graduated from IIT Roorkee. I've finished my master's in urban and rural planning. So, in the recent days, we all witnessed that our Honorable Prime Minister unveiling the Namo Bharat train and then inaugurating the priority section of the RRTS. So, today, my focus aligns with this monumental development as I delve into the impact it holds for the Delhi Meerut corridor. So join me in exploring how regional rapid transit system will impact the development along the Delhi Ghaziabad Meerut corridor through a stakeholder perception study. So, firstly, with the rapid with the rising population, we are also witnessing rapid urbanization, and estimates suggest that India will be 50% urban by the year 2050. And now these regions like NCR, they are witnessing massive growth and development, and which is also burdening the existing infrastructure services in the city. Transportation services being one of the critical infrastructure services also being overly burdened. Now, therefore, there has been a growing impetus in the last few years on development of public transportation systems in regions like NCR, with a great emphasis on regional integration. And the regional plans that are being developed, they are oriented towards a more citizen-centric approach. Now, RITS also one such initiative that is launched to promote an integrated balanced regional development in NCR, and it will act as a catalyst for development within the region, particularly affecting the lives of the people associated along people living along the corridor. And now, as the nation and the region pursues sustainable and equitable development, therefore a pressing need arises to adopt a more human-centric approach when we are looking at addressing these urban challenges. It thus becomes very imperative to understand and gather the insights and feedback of the stakeholders. So therefore, my study examines how the stakeholders along the Delhi Ghaziabad Meerut corridor perceive the introduction of RITS in the region. Now, the concept of regional rail is new to India. However, this concept is well accepted in countries abroad. So, similar case studies would be: first is the RER in Paris, the second example is of Cross Rail in London, and thirdly, the KTX in South Korea. And now, these studies have already shown us that the impacts of these smart transit systems are well evident before even the actual implementation of these projects. For instance, there was a huge surge in the property values when we look at Crossrail London near the station areas, while the increased accessibility in RER Paris, it improved the livability of the people of the region. And then similarly, in case of KTX in Korea, the regions which were not served by these transit systems earlier, they witnessed a lot of population growth and as well as industrial development in these regions. Now, the emphasis of RITS is also on improving the quality of life of these people through by providing the sustainable means of transport, and it is bound to reshape the areas, and it will affect the lives of the people connected with this line. So therefore, it becomes thus imperative to gauge how these transit systems will impact the lives of the people. So consequently, this study examines how the stakeholders along the corridor perceive the introduction of RITS in the region. So against this backdrop, I'll move on to defining the study area. Now there were 8 corridors that were launched for that the RITS network consists of, and the 3 corridors are to be developed in phase 1. The Delhi Meerut Ghaziabad corridor is the first corridor to be started, and the construction for this corridor began in 2019. So it runs for a total length of 82 kilometers with 22 stations. And then Sahibabad and Duhai are part of the first 17-kilometer priority section that was recently inaugurated. So these 2 nodes have been selected for looking into the impact on the stakeholders. And also within these 2 nodes, the area within 1.5 kilometer radius has been delineated by the UPTOD policy that was recently launched as the influence zones. So we will be looking into the impact of the stakeholders within this influence zones only. Then an offline pen paper based stakeholder perception survey, it was conducted with a sample of 390 people within the influence zones, as I've mentioned. Now the questionnaire survey was divided into 4 broader sections, wherein the first section deals with the travel characteristics, where we look at the frequency of travel along the corridor, the purpose and the mode used, and we also look whether the people are willing to shift or not to RRTS. Moving on to the second section, which looks into the perception of RRTS. Third, the last 2 sections deal with the demographic profile and the socioeconomic profile of the respondents. Now for this study, we'll be looking into the perception of the stakeholders on the RRTS. Now the survey uses a 5-point Likert scale to capture the perception through extensive literature review. And keeping in mind the context of the study, we have shortlisted 22 factors broadly categorized into changes in property and land rates, then changes in the land use, built environment and urban design, and the socio-economic impacts. So moving on to the methodology, the methodology used has been employed as Reddit analysis, which stands for Relative to an Identified Distribution Integral Transformation. So it is a method that usually is used to interpret nominal data more meaningfully. And then not delving much deeper into this methodology. So basically what we get out of it, we get the 22 factors have been ranked in terms of the most agreeable factors to the least agreeable factors. So these are some of the observations that the graph shows on the demographic makeup of the respondents, wherein we have clearly seen that the male population dominates the group, and then coming to the age group, it is dominated by the working group. So now this also relates to the land use in Sahibabad is largely dominated by commercial, industrial and residential establishments, whereas the land use in Duhai is dominated by institutional developments, and hence this justifies the large ratio of students and the working population in these groups. Moreover, it's also observed that 2/3 of the population falls below the monthly income bracket of below 50,000. Now the travel characteristics, they reveal that a large majority of the respondents, they use this route daily, either for education purposes or for job or business related purposes. And then this also indicates the popularity of the route. Further, this travel is made through privately owned vehicles, majorly 2-wheelers and 4-wheelers. Another interesting observation is the usage of the bus transport. Now a significant proportion, let's say 20%, uses bus for traveling along this corridor. Now this also suggests that bus transport could also be used to support the RRTS network in the future. Now this is the table, the Reddit analysis which we performed, and then the columns are show the factors, the ordinal scale that we have used, and the first number 1 represents strongly disagree to the 5th one which we have strongly agree. Now based on the Reddit analysis, these rankings have been observed. Now, the most positively received factor is reduction in travel time, that is F13. Then followed by we have F1 and F14. That is, we observe property value increase, and then that the land and property value will become more valuable. Now, as property values increase, the respondents have also perceived an upstick in the property rents, that is factor F10. Now, the factor that RRTS is a major rise in value holds the fifth rank, which also suggests that people perceive that these property values that have risen have been as a result of the development of RRTS in the region. Now, concerning these stations' location suitability, the factor is ranked ninth. Another observation was that the respondents, they do not clearly perceive that RRTS will positively impact the economy of the region. And then on the other hand, there are some factors which are less favorably perceived. For instance, little consensus has been achieved when we look at whether RRTS has disturbed the privacy or RRTS has ruined the aesthetics, which means people don't perceive that the introduction of RRTS in the region has affected the neighborhood aesthetics or has disturbed their privacy. Now, moving on to the key takeaways. One noteworthy finding is that the stakeholders, they place greater emphasis on increased accessibility through safer modes of travel, and hence we have observed this time saving benefits that they put great emphasis on, and the factor has been ranked 1. Moving on, it was also evident that new transport systems, they positively impact the value of the connected areas even before the systems are operational, and this has been validated by this study. Thirdly, the alignment of RRTS, now it was planned to minimize construction in busy urban areas, and they have maximized the use of government land and the right of way that has been available along the state highways. And since the RRTS is largely constructed along the median of the highway in these areas, so people have shown less consensus that the RRTS has negatively affected the areas or their privacy has been disturbed, since they were already exposed to the state highways that was running through the region. So, on a concluding note, the such studies, they allow organizations to gauge how transit systems influence the surrounding areas. Now, this can help us propose more context-specific strategies to get maximum benefits from these systems. Lastly, I would say that RRTS as a network of networks is bound to become the backbone of regional connectivity, accelerating the distribution of growth and prosperity across the most populous urban region in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kritika. I think that you have covered number of areas of concerns with respect to taking parameters. I do not know whether you can take more parameters or not. That you need to look into that.
Okay, sir.
Apart from rating analysis, did you do any kind of factor analysis?
No, sir. No.
Okay, that you can try and
we can try
and compare with your rating analysis.
Definitely, sir.
Okay, so I'll just now, anyway, I'm running short of time now. Last presenter is Somnath Bhui, Priti Saini. You are going to make a presentation on effect of city size on mode choice behavior before and after COVID-19. So introduce yourself quickly.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Preeti Saini. I'm a research scholar from the Architecture and Regional Planning Department, IIT Kharagpur. The paper that I'm presenting today is the work that we did during late 2021 and early 2022 to understand the impact of COVID-19 on the mode choice behavior of individuals and also the impact of city size on it. So, COVID-19 was one of those cases which immensely disrupted the travel behavior of individuals, including the mode choice behavior. And there has been several studies from both developed and developing nations which tried to understand the impact of COVID-19 on mode choice behavior, and they found that there would be a increase in the mode choice of personal vehicle and decrease in the ridership of public transport. But there is another argument that is put forth, which is that these changes would be temporary, and after the COVID-19 or post COVID-19, these changes would be it would be temporary, and people would resume to their earlier travel patterns. But the argument remain a subject of examination if city size is considered, because when the city has a different size, it has different travel opportunities to offer, and it might have a different impact of COVID-19 on the travel behavior in these cities. So the present study aims to explore the impact of city size on mode choice behavior before and after COVID-19 pandemic. So in order to do this, we conducted an online survey, a pan-India survey during late 2021, early 2022, and it resulted in the collection of 344 observations. The questions were related to individuals' demographic attributes. Also, responses were asked for socioeconomic factors before COVID-19 as well as after COVID-19 for income, household size, number of bicycle, two-wheelers or four-wheelers. Coming to the preliminary analysis that we did for model share for work trips, we found that the data suggests that there was a decrease in the mode share of public transport during the COVID-19, but after COVID-19, the share again rose to 29%, which was similar to the pre-COVID time. For personal car, the share was decreased. The share was increased during COVID-19, but it immensely dropped down after the COVID-19. However, this case was not for the two-wheeler private vehicles. For two-wheeler private vehicles, we found that there was an increase of 10% during COVID-19. It remained similar after COVID-19 as well. And during and post-COVID-19, the share of non-motorized transport also fell down. For non-work trips, we found various kind of modal share characteristic among the individuals. So for non-work trips, we found that during COVID-19, the public transport share decreased, but post-COVID-19, unlike the work modes, we found that it could not reach its earlier share. For personal vehicle, we found that people during the COVID-19, they have increased their vehicle ownership. They have either purchased a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, and they have used it for recreational trips. Unlike a work trips where the car ownership does not result in the shift towards the personal vehicle or the use of car, but the ownership of two-wheeler increased the usage of two-wheelers. But it was not the case in the non-work trips. So in order to estimate the impact of different factors on the mode choice behavior before and after COVID-19, we estimated a multinomial logistic regression model, and these are the results for it. The first factor that come out to be significant was age. We found that before COVID-19, the likelihood to commute by car is highest for an age group which lies within 35 to 44 year range. Before COVID-19, the individuals belonging to 25 to 34 years age bracket, they are less likely to commute by car compared to individuals whose age was beyond 45 years. But after COVID-19, we could not find this factor as significant for car owners, car commuting or car mode share. Coming to the most important factor for our study, which was a city size. So we divided the city based on the population, and we found 5 categories as per the URDPFI guideline. And we found that before COVID-19, the city size inversely related to the likelihood of using NMT motorized two-wheeler. So if the city is larger in population, the people have less likely proclivity towards using an NMT or motorized two-wheeler. But after COVID-19, we found that the usage of NMT and motorized two-wheelers increased for class 3 cities, but for class 1 city, the share of NMT decreased in comparison to public transport, and for motorized two-wheeler also, the likelihood of this modal share increased after COVID-19. Next is the gender. We found that male compared to females are more likely to use NMT and motorized two-wheelers before as well as after COVID-19. This generally suggests the gender difference in the mobility preferences. Next factor was household size. We found that before COVID-19 as well as after COVID-19, as the family size was increasing, people are more preferring to use public transport, then NMT, and in a decreasing order is like motorized two-wheeler, RHS, ride-hailing service, and personal car. So it generally shows that when the family size increases, the the burden on the financial and the mobility options is more. That's why people are preferring more affordable options after COVID-19 too. Income also, we did not find that good result for income, but these are very common results that we found, that such as increase in income increases the likelihood of commuting by two-wheeler or car. And after COVID-19 also, we found the same result. Coming to the vehicle ownership for two-wheelers and personal car, we found that even before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, if there was an increase in the vehicle ownership of two-wheeler, then person is more likely to commute by the same vehicle. Although our results were similar to the previous studies, but if we consider the city size, there are some key points that I would like to put forth. The MNL model results suggest that there was an increased commuting by NMT in smaller cities and reduction in the commuting in the larger cities post-COVID. So smaller cities are generally more NMT friendly, and with less traffic, they make people safe about using the NMT mode. This generally highlights the need of policy and infrastructure development to support NMT in larger cities as well, because after COVID-19, the people are not preferring NMT modes. However, in smaller cities, they were preferring NMT modes. Second aspect is that motorized two-wheelers, they gained popularity during COVID-19 and continued as a preferred commute option, both in class 1 and class 3 cities. So if we want to really promote sustainability, we need to improve the public transport too in class 1 and class 3 and class 2 cities as well. Since smaller cities, they are limited in scale and there might be a presence or absence of bus transit system, but we can always explore the well-regulated paratransit service in these areas. But in larger cities where the bus transit is there, combining the paratransit with buses through dynamic scheduling can be one of the solutions, so that we can create a mutually sustainable scenario despite the competitive concerns. During COVID-19, people turned to personal vehicle out of necessity, resulting in increased vehicle ownership. But after restrictions were eased out, they continuously use the personal vehicle for work trip as well as for recreational trip. But strategies are required to discourage the vehicle ownership so that we can enhance the public transport and NMT infrastructure in those cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. But you say that how many cities you have taken for understanding that effect of city size?
Since we consider the observation 344, we just divided it into, based on these observation, we classified the number of cities. So it's a pan-India survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now, good. Very good. You have given and a greater understanding about the mode choice models before and after COVID, and only have resorted to logic modeling exercise.
Yes, sir.
Did you try with any other modeling, like using fuzzy logic, artificial neural network? You didn't try.
For this study, we did not.
You could have tried that. What is because we have seen over a period of time that soft computing based on fuzzy logic and artificial neural network basically is better than our conventional logic model.
Okay.
That's my personal view. I have seen based on the number of research. So please, if you have time, you can try.
Sure. So
Okay.
the previous research that we found for COVID-19, they have generally used MNL models. So we thought if we want to check or compare our results with the previous work also, so we thought to go with MNL model only.
Okay, thank you. Now we have some time. Of course, we don't have much time. I will take some time out of my schedule. But anyway, I can take some questions if authority permits me to go for at least another 10 minutes. In case you have any questions, I open the floor for discussions. So the gentleman who was sitting here, you want to start?
Sure. I had a question on the discussion on FSI and FAR that you had addressed yourself. What we have looked at was existing capacity of infrastructure when you're looking at capacity. And you talked about 3 FSI, 4 FSI, etc., 300, 400 in FAR. But one of the things is you're looking at existing infrastructure in India. And if you look at the evolution of many cities around the world, the carrying capacity, what was there 50 years ago and today has changed. So there are cities today that have 10 and 15, which is 1,000% and 1,500%. So have we done any international benchmarking of how that FSI has evolved over there? and whether those kind of, any kind of international benchmarking for high density cities of similar size that have, provided infrastructure itself getting upgraded so that the capacity goes up.
Yes, you can respond.
So yes, sir. In other countries, FSI around 25 is also being considered, especially in the TOD corridors. But why we have to look from the carrying capacity perspective in India, especially because in the West, TOD is considered as a strategy to densify the core areas and to build economic corridors. But in India, we already have high density developments. We already have a kind of mixed use development, more or less, in the core areas where the metro rail runs. So in this regard, what we found out from the research is if we look from the carrying capacity perspective, only then we can put on the cap on FSI to what maximum extent the development can be permitted. So this is what we are trying to build up in a model, considering suppose we know the LPCD of water that is required, we know the amount of solid waste generation based on the standards, based on the population in that area. So suppose there is X population with current FSI of 2. If you are increasing to FSI of 4, we know how population will increase and how the demand of water and other infrastructure facilities like solid waste generation increases. So based on this, do we have those facilities in the city to process that waste? Do we have the resources to supply or to meet the targets of that water demand? So in this way, it is important for us to look before setting a cap of FSI is what our research is trying to bring.
I think it's a matter of great discussions. I think that we can discuss all these things in details during the tea. But I like to, because anyway, it's a very important area of research. So it's very difficult to answer your question at one stage until it is backed up with research. Anyway, thank you. And anybody else wants to raise any questions? Okay. So no questions. I think that all of you must have presented well. That's why they are not finding any, questions in their mind. I think that now I can, at the conclusion, I like to say it's a wonderful session, and all 6 have actively participated with a great understanding of research component, which is very, very important, because whatever you do, if you does not back up with the research component, for example, the gentleman who raised issues on FSI, so it's really a debate. Though master plan has recommended 4, 3.5, people can say that, well, depending on I have a better resources, I can go on to even 5. So there is no end. So that is the point of research you have to undertake and ultimately come to a benchmarking. Ultimately, why do you conduct research? Ultimately, we have to arrive at a benchmarking which basically benefits all of us. So practically, I find nowadays that we have not done much research in the area of land use and transportation. Though we have exclusively done research on transportation, for example, mode choice modeling, but relation between each other, dependent on each other, how it really quantifies, is a challenge practically to come to a quantitative level and ultimately do a benchmarking. That is the reasons I feel master plan prepared most of the cities in India are not very, very productive. Over a period of time, we find we suggest a bypass, within no time there is another bypass is coming, recommendation is coming, bypass after bypass. Therefore, we need a concerted effort for scientific planning. Scientific planning means until it is quantitatively built up, our planning measures, I think that your intuition, experience planning will have its limit. So, and this is my perception after spending a lot of time in this profession. I thank you, all of you, for your active participation and deliberations. So with that note, I conclude the sessions. Thank you very much.
Just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our esteemed chairperson, Professor P.K. Sarkar, to present a special moment on behalf of UMI for our heartfelt appreciation for his presence and valuable guidance.